Hey guys, this is John Hennessey at Hennessey Performance, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about kind of a follow-up from a video we did maybe a month ago, talking about our intentions to set the 2A average top speed record with the Venom F5 and doing it before the end of this year, and we're still actively working on that. But something that I knew about that I didn't talk about is that we've been actively testing our Venom F5 Revolution over the past year, developing the car, prepping it for our customers if they want to take them to racetracks in the US or around the world. We basically wanted to make sure that package was dialed in, and that culminated a few days ago with a production car lap record at our home track, Circuit of the Americas, which is about 100 miles up the road from our factory here in Sealy up near Austin. So, but we just didn't like overnight think to ourselves, let's go see if we can go set a lap record with the F5 Revolution. It was very intentional. So if we go back to end of 2020 when we introduced the Venom F5 Coupe, at that point the Revolution idea of a track-focused version of the car was still on the drawing board. But at that point in time, when we introduced the F5, we basically said to the public, to the world, that we intended for the Venom F5 to be the decathlete of hypercars. You know, over 1,800 horsepower, a little under 3,000 pounds of curb weight, really unmatched power to weight ratio. Everybody would assume that this car is built for straight line speed, acceleration, top speed, and some may think, well, maybe it does all those things and maybe it stops, but you know, you put it on a road course, maybe it would do okay. That was never our thought or goal. We wanted to have the F5 to where you would be just as comfortable on a road course as it would at the drag strip, as it would on the Autobahn. And so as time went forward and we began producing cars, building cars for clients, delivering cars to clients, and we did some aero testing on the F5 up into the 270 mile an hour range, at which point we decided, hey look, we just really need to focus on taking care of clients. But you know, it's just part of our DNA. It's part of my DNA, our family's DNA, and our company's DNA for 33 plus years. We don't just want to talk about the car, put it on the dyno, or show some cool pictures. You know, we as a company and our customers, as they would desire, if they want to go fast, we like to push the boundaries. We like to break records. We like to, as Wolfgang Durheimer, the former CEO of Bugatti, said to me one time, he says, he likes to stir the pot. We like to stir the pot too. So somewhere along the way, we had a client that ordered a car, said, hey, look, you know, if you'll build a track-focused version of the car, that's what he wanted. And this is a guy that actually has his own private 3.4 mile long road course. It's amazing. It's as nice, maybe nicer than Circuit of the Americas up in Austin. So he was very kind to let us use his track initially to do some shakedowns on his car, but then about a year ago, we decided to dedicate a Venom F5 Revolution Coupe for the purposes of just overall vehicle setup. So again, we've got the aero data, we've got the wheels, tires, brakes, suspension, ABS, horsepower. All this is baked into the cake, but there can be a pretty big difference in terms of how does the car perform if you just take all that, put it together, and runs and drives, it's a nice car, versus if you go to the track and you test it, and little differences in alignment setting, in ABS calibration, and power delivery, and throttle response. Those things can add up to a big difference in lap time. So we began that process again about a year ago, and I would say we've probably done a dozen road course tests. And again, you can watch the other video. We wanted to make the other video kind of short and sweet. I taught for about a minute, and then we just let you watch the V-Box video lap of the car running at 2:10.9 seconds around the track. And anyway, fastest production road car around Circuit of the Americas. We ran a 2:10.9 on Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires, and not a slick, not a race tire, and basically a full specification with, you know, the seats, and we actually added weight. We added a halon fire suppression system. It was for the process of not only developing the car and making sure that we're delivering great, reliable, amazing cars to our clients, but it's also kind of a cool test for our engineers, our technicians, our overall team, from the standpoint that, you know, as the line that we used, that President Kennedy said back in the early 60s, was, we don't do these things because they're easy, we do them because they're hard. And so kind of that trial by fire of going to these various tracks and pushing the car and finding the limitations on certain aspects of the car helps us to build not only a better car for our clients, but also a better team for the future of the F5 and for other cars that will come after that. So I wanted to just give kind of some context. So again, this is the longer form video. If you just want to watch the lap of the car going out and hitting 100, and I think we had 193 miles per hour on GPS in the back straight, pretty fast. You can watch that video. But I also just wanted to give a little bit more kind of perspective. If we go back to the beginning of the company, when I didn't know that I started the company in 91, but I was just this guy in his 20s that wanted to buy a car, wanted to modify it, wanted to race it. So I had a Mitsubishi 3000 GT, read about a guy named C. Van Toon, who's now a friend of mine, and Van ended up becoming the editor-in-chief at Motorfin magazine back in the 90s. But I read about Van maybe in 1989 or 1990, where he bought an Eagle Talon, put a roll cage in it, and he took it to Pikes Peak and he raced it. And I thought, man, if that guy could do that, maybe I could do that. So bought a 3000 GT VR4, put a cage in it, took it to Pikes Peak, didn't win anything, but it didn't crash. And I also drove there and drove home, which is, I thought all good racers did that, but I didn't know that racers actually had crews and trailers, and I didn't have any of that. I just had my floor jack and spare wheels and tires, a luggage and helmet, and just crammed everything that I could in the car. Drove from Texas to Colorado Springs, drove home. In 91, I'm just like, I'm having fun. I want to push the boundaries. I thought, well, gosh, I wonder if there's a class at Bonneville that we could fit into. Got the rule book, found out there was the F production supercharged class, which was 3-liter production street cars. Drove it there, put a parachute on the back, set a two-way average of 177 miles an hour. Not a big number by today's standard, but I can promise you, whatever number a car runs at Bonneville, it would run a lot faster under easier conditions. And then also that same year, read about a race called the Silver State Classic, which is in September. They still have it. 90 miles of haul ass from point A to point B on Highway 318, about 4 hours north of Las Vegas. In 91, they had the first year of its sister race called the Nevada Open Road Challenge, which they had in May. So I did both races. First race, I got an average speed of 164 miles an hour over 90 miles. So I'm basically doing 90 miles in 34 minutes. And then I came back in September. I didn't have a cage in the car at that point either, which was like beyond dumb. But anyway, I didn't know that back then. But anyway, came back in September, entered the Unlimited class, won the Unlimited class, was second overall. Real smart engine builder, a guy named Richard Holdner, just beat me by a little bit for the overall. But 167 miles an hour on the 90-mile race in September, at which point I was hooked. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm learning the first rule of car racing, and I've said this before. If you want to make a small fortune in car racing, you start with a larger fortune. As I'm watching my bank balance headed south, and I'm getting ready to, I bought a house and got married and paid for the honeymoon and came home, and I'm like, man, I used to have a lot more money in the bank before I took up the serious hobby of cars and racing. And so at which point I decided, well, I want to keep doing this. This is a lot of fun. I've enjoyed the modification process. I've enjoyed the racing aspect, the competition, the camaraderie amongst other racers. And that's kind of how the company started in 91. And I did a lot of those Silver State races. I was now racing Vipers. You can Google Hennessey Venom 650R. There'll be a yellow Gen 2 Viper that'll come up. That was a car that I was racing in, maybe it was 99. 4 little kids under the age of 5 at home. And I'm still doing these races are dangerous. If you go off out in the middle of the desert, they talk about, like, if you get hurt, you have the golden hour, and that's why they have Life Flight to come get you to a trauma center. Forget about it. You go out in the desert, by the time the helicopter got to me, I'd probably be dead. So ignorance is bliss, out there having a good time. But I'd made some aero modifications to the car, but never really did any high-speed testing with it. CFD didn't exist back then. I'm an engineering school dropout, so I know a few things, but I don't have the depth of engineering that we do now. Anyway, I had this wing on the back, and somebody showed me after the race, they showed me a picture of the car going through a turn, and it looked like a ski nautique ski boat where the ass end was compressed and the nose. I can still remember going like this with the steering wheel, like the tires could go like this, and the car, thankfully, still mostly went straight. So I did know when I got to a turn, if I lifted off the throttle a little bit, the nose would come down and it would be a little bit easier to turn. I get about 60 miles into the 90-mile race. I hear a noise in the back. I've got some reporter from Esquire magazine riding shotgun with me, and I heard this thump. What the hell was that? So I thought I better pull over. I got out of the car, walked around, I got air in the tires, the engine's running, and now cars are coming by. I'm like, shit, I want to win the race. I can't win if I'm on the side of the road. So I was getting ready to get back in the car, and it's just like the voice of God told me, take a look under the back of the car. And I walked around to the back of the car, got down on the ground, looked up forward into the back of the car, looking at the tires, and I saw a chunk of sidewall about 8 inches long that was gone from the sidewall of the tire. I'm like, we're done. That chunk of sidewall hitting that inner fender liner, and me being able to hear that with a pretty much a straight piped, open header car, was just telling me that I had literally maybe seconds before that tire would have been a complete failure, and I would have been doing cartwheels through the desert. I don't know that I would have survived that. So anyway, lived to tell the story. At the end of the race, my guys came up with the trailer, and I said, no, we're not trailering. I said, pull the spares out of the trailer. We're putting the spares on the car. Drove the car into Ash Springs, which is a little gas station south of. You run from Lund to Heiko, and then there's Ash Springs where we would get gas and, gas station food. And anyway, funny little side story after that race. So I wanted to drive the car back in because I didn't want people thinking, okay, the car had a failure. There was a tire failure, and it's not Michelin's fault. It was my fault for not understanding what was going on by adding more downforce to the back of the car, not having that balanced. Anyway, when I'm at the gas station, this is kind of a cool story. I think I've ever told this. I'm at the gas station. We're gassing up the 650R Venom 650R Viper, and here comes this Aston Martin Lagonda, just like in the middle of nowhere. And a guy that's with me says, hey, I think Evel Knievel has one of those. And sure enough, it was Evel Knievel. Pulls into the pump while I'm gassing my car up, and he gets out, and he's got this little tiny rat dog in his lap, and just kind of doing his own thing. He pops his hood, and he's putting oil in the engine. And I get done gassing, and I'm like, hey, does somebody have a Sharpie? Because we're like the first ones there. Nobody else from the race had gotten there. And I just said, Mr. Knievel, I'm a big fan. Could you sign the back of my shirt? And so he signed the back of my shirt. And then now people were like pulling in, and people were recognizing him, and people asking for his autograph. And I got the first one, so he was very nice. But now he's starting to get agitated. And I heard him say, I'm getting the hell out of here. And I said, I am too. So I jumped in my Viper, and he's in his Aston Martin, and we leave out. So now from Ash Springs to the Highway 15 north of Vegas, I'm gonna guess it's 120 miles maybe. It was just me and Evel Knievel taking kind of swapping lead position, and we're cruising probably on the low side 120, maybe on the high side 150 for 100 plus miles. Just me and Evel Knievel. And when we get down, and now we're coming down to the 15, we're gonna turn right and go into Vegas. I'm in the lead. I'm at the stop sign to turn right to merge onto the highway to go into Vegas. He pulls up next to me, his Aston Martin. He looks at me and he salutes me. That I think is probably I've got some cool stories, but that, like, my brush with the greatness of Evel Knievel is one of the coolest things I think I've ever experienced. Anyway, so I'm telling you all this stuff to say that fast forward now almost 34 years, as a company, this is what we do. Now, we've been real quiet about the F5 because, again, you just don't build a car from the ground up with over 3,000 new parts and take the first car or the fifth car and go straight out to a runway or a highway and go, yeehaw, we're going 310 plus miles per hour. There's been a process to that. Thankfully, the process with the Venom F5 Revolution is a great validation for our track focus car. And COTA, we're not done at COTA. We may go back to COTA at some point. Like all good racers, we feel like there's more in it. At some point, we may turn up to Laguna Seca, Virginia, VIR, possibly, maybe even the Nürburgring. So again, these are things that are on our radar screen, but it's a cool process as we're working towards our BHAG, our big, hairy, audacious goal of establishing F5 as the fastest in the two-way direction. Anyway, our Hennessey Performance division has modified all kinds of vehicles in the last 34 years. And in the last 5 to 10 years, modifying trucks and SUVs have been super popular. So those don't really lend themselves to magazine shootouts and top speed tests and things of that nature, but it pays the bills pretty well, and our customers really enjoy those vehicles. And F5 is for us and for our team, it really allows us to scratch that competitive, that creative itch. Again, check out the video, our other video that shows the F5 doing the 2:10.9 second lap at COTA. with David Donahue driving. Thank you, David, so much. Thanks to our team, thanks to our suppliers, thanks to Michelin, thanks to the folks from Shell Pennzoil that keep our engines powerful and safe at speed. We'll be back to talk about maybe a few more things that we're working on this year. But when we're quiet, it doesn't mean we're just back here in Texas just kind of twiddling around and eating Mexican food. It means that we're working hard on pushing the boundaries and climbing the next mountain. And when we get to the top of that next mountain, you'll be one of the first to hear about it. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.